This is first Saturday, February 2024. I'm Bruce E. Fleming, Executive Director of the Tru316 Foundation, and we're the home of the Eden Podcast. And we have our special Zoom question and answer sessions the first Saturday of every month. So welcome aboard, and we're glad to have you. Today, I'd like to share with you a special worksheet I put together, so I'll just jump right onto that. And this part will be recorded and the other part won't. So if you have questions and answers, we'll talk about them. But I want to share the screen here first. If I can hit the right button. Here we go. Share screen. It looks like Christmas, but I didn't intend it to look like Christmas. I just thought, red light, stop, green light, go. Then afterwards, I thought, oh, looks like Christmas. Everybody see this? And give me a wave if you can see it. All right. So what I'm going to do is make this as big as I can. There we go. And this is a brand new Tru316 Pass Fail worksheet on Genesis 3:16, based on the research of my wife, Dr. Joy Fleming. So PhD, you know what kind of doctorate that is. PSYD, that's a doctorate in psychology. So she has 2 earned doctorates. And her insights are at the foundation of everything we get to do, especially on Genesis 2 and 3. She's an Old Testament professor, and I'm a professor in practical theology, and I specialize in the New Testament passages on women and men. So let's ask this question. Does a version show the meaning of the Hebrew words? What kind of meaning? Well, there's bad news and there's good news in Genesis 3:16. And once we have the attack by Satan and the serpent in Genesis 3:1, we notice that they eat from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. So we got good news, bad news here. And there's mixed fruit then from the tree, and there's mixed results. So as you go through Genesis chapter 3, you're going to see the good news and the bad news, or maybe you haven't noticed it. In Joy's dissertation, she was very careful to outline the entire chapters 2 and 3 in Hebrew. And it's just fantastic. If you'd like to get a copy of that, not too many people work at that level, but you can. Her dissertation is available at tru316.com/shop. And then just click on the dissertation. You can order that. And I recommend you look at chapters 3 and 4. And there's a lot of Hebrew in there, but it's written in English, so you can figure out the meaning from that. All right, so based on that, does aversion, to have an aversion to something means to not like it, but that's not what I'm going for. Aversion meaning a version of the Bible. So a version would be the NIV or the New American Standard or the ESV or the Living Bible, or you get the idea. So whatever version of the Bible you have, you can take a look at that and just go through this pass-fail worksheet. Now, there are 11 Hebrew words. We're not going to hit all 11 in Genesis 3:16, but we're going to hit the key words. So let's start out with the very first one in line 1. So God says to the woman, multiplying, first 2 words, multiplying, I will multiply. So it means I'm really going to do this. And that's when you put those 2 words together, multiplying, I will multiply, 2 in Hebrew, then that's usually 2 other places in the Old Testament. It's an introduction to a blessing. Okay. So it's usually good news. So multiplying, I will multiply, sets us up for good news. But line 1, word 3 is itzabon. The Hebrew word is itzabon, and that is not good news. That is bad news. So already the pattern is working here. So itzabon, and Joy says it's best translated sorrowful dash toil or toil. So itzabon means toil. So this is bad news. One of the problems is that most of your translations don't even show this word as a separate word. They don't show the next one either, heron, as a separate word. If you go to the King James Version or the New King James Version, and there are some others, not many, you will see that God says, I will multiply, multiplying, I will multiply 2 things, word 3 and word 4. So this is word 3. But most translations have taken a different approach since 1950, and they are saying, no, it's not 2 separate words. It's just one idea, and it doesn't have anything to do with the 2 Hebrew words. We think it means pain in childbirth, Well, when they did that, it made it look like God basically cursed the woman, and it's had all kinds of bad fallout ever since. So there's no curse on Eve or Adam, and God didn't limit women in any way in Genesis chapter 3. So anyhow, you're going to go back to your version, take a look. Did they get Itzabon right? Pass or fail? Did they list it as toil, or did they list it as sorrowful toil, or even sorrow? That would work. The point is, this is the result of working the ground God cursed because of the man's rebellion. How do we know that? Because Itzabon is presented again in verse 17, and where God says, I'm going to curse the ground and you will have Itzabon. Oh, I'm cursing the ground because of you, says to the man. Doesn't say it to her, I'm giving Itzabon because of you, ma'am, but about you, man. So the result of working the ground, God cursed because of the man's rebellion. Oh, wait a minute. You mean it's for him and for her? Yes. Take a look at Genesis 5:29, the only other place this word is used. And that's where the parents of Noah talk about, they both have that same problem. So male or female, anybody that's out there working the ground has this sorrowful toil. Does that sound like childbirth? No. And yet most translations put in the idea of birth pangs. It is not about birth pangs. Okay. What is it about? It's about field work. It's about working the soil with your hands. Moving on. Question. So did they grade it? Did they pass or did they fail in that version? It'd be fun. I'd like somebody, give us your grade at the end. How did that translation work out? Number 2, still in line 1, Heron. Heron is the fourth of the 4 words in Hebrew, and it means conception, or it could mean pregnancies. It's the kind of a Hebrew word that is a singular word, but it can contain multiple possibilities in it. There's a technical word for that. I don't remember it right now at the moment. So conception or pregnancies. Well, this is the key idea. It's not the word childbirth. Okay. It's conception or pregnancies. So we have a new one, a new person. Hi, welcome from South Africa. It's coming on. So we're going through a list here of a pass-fail. Pass-fail worksheet. Grade, pick a Bible version and grade it. See how they're doing on Genesis 3:16. So number 2, does your Bible translation convey the meaning of conception or pregnancies? This is important because Heron means the offspring who would crush the head of the serpent tempter. You're going to have conception of your seed. Look at verse 15. And that seed or that offspring will crush the head of the serpent tempter. So did your translation pass or fail? Number 3, etzev. Now we're down to line 2. By the way, in line 1, God says, I'm going to do something new. And the rest of the verse, he's just telling her, teaching her. He's not adding anything else new. That's important when you get to line 2, first word, etzev. That's translated grief. Joy would prefer, I think, the 2 words, psychological sorrow. All right, psychological sorrow or grief, not birth pangs. It's got nothing to do with birth pangs. How do we know? Well, think about the psychological sorrow the woman had in raising up and watching her children grow. Oh, who were her children? Well, we know the names of a couple of them. Cain. And he was the firstborn. Was he going to be the fulfillment of the conception of offspring who would crush the head of Satan? No. In fact, he crushed the head. I don't know if it was that way, but he did. He killed his brother. Think of the psychological sorrow she had from that. Number 4, so pass or fail on your translation. Number 4, yatsar banim. There's 2 Hebrew words. Bring forth children. Most translations make it look like it's all about childbirth. Again, they're making God stutter, but he didn't say that. He didn't talk about childbirth in the first line. He didn't talk about childbirth in the second line. I'll take a look at the verb, yatsar. Yatsar, most translations, I'm afraid, make it look like, again, childbirth, but it appears all over the place in Genesis 4:18, 4 times, yatsar. And there, the old King James said, so-and-so begat so-and-so. And the NIV said, was the father of, because it's 4 men and 4 boys. So-and-so was the father of, who was the father of, this is yatsar. We can translate it, I think, better, was the parent of. So yatsar banim. Joy says, yeah, what's the parent of? But the Hebrew word maybe we can just translate it, bring forth children. And we have my number 5 coming in from California. We're working through a worksheet here, and we're talking about the Tru316 Pass Fail worksheet. Does the Bible version in front of you pass or fail on the good news and the bad news that's revealed in 316? So line 1, does it show toil for Itzamon? Does it show conception for Heron? Pass or fail? Line 2, does it show grief for Etzev? Does it show bring forth children for Yatsar Banim? So again, Yatsar means to be the parent of, and Banim means simply children, kids. And that's important because this is the fulfillment of the creation mandate. Be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. Genesis 1:28. And it's the fulfillment of the proto-evangelium, the first announcement of the gospel in Genesis 3:15. So how does your translation do? Do they pass or fail? And I'm afraid most of them that I've looked at do not pass. Number 5 out of 6, we're down to line 3. Teshuka, which means desire, not twisted or turning. Why is it desire? Well, it's a simple word. If you compare it with Song of Solomon, verse 7:10, Song of Solomon 7:10, what are you going to see? You're going to see that his desire is for me. So Solomon's desire for his wife was good in this beautiful song of love in Song of Solomon. Is it possible that Eve had wonderful desire for her husband? Well, she had not rebelled. Her heart was not twisted up anymore or getting twisted. And she still had affection for her husband. I told Joy, I said, we ought to put the word love in here instead of for desire. Your love is for your husband. She said, well, I'm sticking with the Hebrew translation as much as I can. We can at least say affection. Okay. So your desire or your affection is for your husband. Does your translation show that? Is it a positive? That's why it's green here. Is it a positive? Is that why they show it? Or do they show it as a negative, like you're turning away or something like that? And then line 4, so 3 and 4, lines 3 and 4 go together. We've got a green in line 3. We got a red in line 4. The verb there in Hebrew is mashal. That verb is kind of a flexible verb. It's used a lot of places, but there is another one I found where the Philistines rule over the Israelites. So it can be used in a bad way. And this is God's warning to her. God's talking to the woman, not God's command to the man. He's not talking to the man. He's not saying to him, I want you to rule over her. He's saying to her, look out. His desire is to rule over you. Now, who should do the ruling? Well, God ruled over each. He ruled over the man. He ruled over the woman. He ruled over them. He rules over us. And yet, if the man rules over her, he's going to usurp God's proper place. Well, he'd already done that. When he decided knowingly to rebel and to act against God's proscription not to eat, he took God, he displaced God from the throne over him, and he put himself on the throne. So he ruled over himself. And now he's going to rule over her. And that's what we've seen all over through the history of the world. It's a terrible thing. Is that clear in your translation? Some of them are kind of iffy. You can give it a pass or a fail if you want. So let's give it a score. Failed on how many points? So for example, say this version, the ESV, failed 6 out of 6 times or 1 out of 6 times, whatever it is, you can give it a grade. And that's how we work our way through the Tru316 Pass Fail worksheet on Genesis 3:16. Does the version you're checking show the meaning of the Hebrew words? There's bad news and there's good news. And basically, that's a wonderful thing because after the attack, you might think, and you've heard people preach this, there's all bad news. There's nothing but judgment and condemnation and curses all over the place. And my wife Joy points out, no, there's a lot of good news here, even to the woman. And in fact, especially to the woman in Genesis 3:16. So if you could do this worksheet, I'd like you to give me the results of your translation you're looking at. Just send it to me, Bruce@Tru316.com, and we can start combining and seeing how they're grading the various translations.